Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. It was exciting, it was edge of the seat stuff. It was also probably a fight that took the last of Adam Kownacki, who surely has to retire now after dropping another fight, albeit in a fun slugfest with Cusumano, who stopped Adam Kownacki in the 8th round of their fight. And actually, had this gone the distance, Kownacki may have got the nod, but it became academic in the end, with Cusumano taking it out of the judges' hands. And I have to say, and we will discuss this, the ending of the fight was almost shocking in itself because of the referee's ineptitude. The referee, David Fields, did not really fulfill a duty of care to Adam Kownacki. You actually had Cusumano raising his hands, walking off, before the referee realized, yeah, this fight is over. It was almost like David Fields was like, if he dies, he dies. It was just shocking. Doctor's up on the canvas, just waving his hands to stop it. Bearing in mind, there'd actually been a number of times the doctor had, after rounds, either inspected Kownacki or Cusumano, because this was all action in some rounds. It was a really interesting and weird fight in some regards, because you had a fast start, it tapered off, and then ultimately there were stretches in the 7th and 8th round where things just shot to life. But Adam Kownacki, if the what next is anything other than retirement, then someone needs to slap him and try to get some sense into him. But there were bad signs for Kownacki in this fight from round 1. When Cusumano is fresh, he is dangerous because he is a puncher. But in the same breath, he doesn't move his head, he is hittable, and guys like Daniel Dubois opened him up like a tin of sardines and took him out. Adam Kownacki and Cusumano have one thing in common: they do not move their head. And in different stretches in that first round, you had them just wildly trading, and it was Kownacki who was coming off second best. And there was one right hand that rocked him and backed him up, and I was like, oh, this is a bad sign. As we know, Adam Kownacki, through his fights with Robert Helenius and also Ali Erendemirashian, he's taken a lot of punishment. He hasn't won a fight in the 2020s. His last win was against Chris Arreola all the way back in 2019, and I think people forget that. But it's clear and evident his chin had gone and was backed up again today, because after that initial right hand, Cusumano continued to find the target and ultimately put him down on the canvas. And I think it was pretty lucky that was right near the end of round 1, because Cusumano was going in for, the stoppage, and the bell saved Kownacki. But I think it was pretty clear that round took a bit out of Cusumano. As we know, Adam Kownacki likes to fight with volume and aggression, and there was quite a bit of trading in back and forth in round 1. And you had a situation where Cusumano just unable to take advantage in the second and also the third rounds. And arguably, Kownacki won those rounds. There was a better performance. He was on the jab. He was starting to work to the body. And Cusumano just wasn't able to quite find the target again with the right hand as money punch. He was coming close and missing, sometimes by mere centimeters. But it was Kownacki that was starting to wrest a little bit of control with the fight. It was still close. It was still tight. And then we had a bit of a period in the fight. It was kind of, as I described in a tweet on Twitter, a war of attrition. By round 4, both these guys looked spent in terms of their gas tank. Both sloppy punching, and, it was not high volume, but it was close and even sorts of rounds. But the fact that Adam Kownacki just works a bit harder, he throws more punches, I thought it's hard to sort of give Cusumano some of these rounds. And I was thinking, well, if these guys actually go the distance, and because there's a very partisan crowd reacting to Kownacki's, style of fighting and every punch that lands, could have been, and I mentioned on Twitter that, Cusumano needs to be careful of that. He needs to win some rounds and win them, with an exclamation point on, because otherwise, despite being dropped, Kownacki may have got a decision. And I guess for Matchroom's purposes, because they signed him to obviously have this fight, he's a ticket seller. There was a, huge contingent of Polish fans supporting Adam Kownacki in the crowd, they would have wanted him to win, because the more he wins, the more tickets they sell next time out. But anyway, it got to a point in the 7th round, and I was thinking Cusumano, and maybe he also, with some of the advice in the corner, was thinking, actually, this is starting to get to a point where I need to do something. And he had a very good 30 seconds or so in round 7. He really put it on Cusumano, on Kownacki, and backed him up, landed a huge amount of shots. And Kownacki was obviously rocked by some of these, but he didn't go down. He wasn't deterred, and ultimately he came back and finished that round the stronger of the two. It was clear that Cusumano had basically blown his energy and his wad for that round, and had very little left to defend himself. And given Kownacki was also so gassed, probably lucky that Kownacki didn't really put a huge dent in him. But you had a case that throughout the whole fight, and I was thinking this from round 2 onwards, it looked like if Cusumano was clearly gassed early on, if he could just put together one successful or two successful flurries, Kownacki always felt like he wasn't that far from being taken out. And so it came in that 8th round. You had a case, a big right hand lands and Kownacki is rocked. Another big right hand comes in and Kownacki is wobbling back to the ropes. And at this point, he's clearly unable to successfully defend himself. And you had Joe Cusumano just emptying whatever else he had in the tank, right hands, left hooks, and just putting it on him. And that was the point that I alluded to earlier. They throw the towel in. It hits the referee in the back. He doesn't seem to know what's been going on behind him. But someone obviously told Cusumano, or he was somehow became aware of it, because he stretches his arms out in celebration, jumps up, walks away, and then the referee's like, "Oh yeah," and waves it off. So wild scenes to end the fight, some ineptitude by the ref, and you have a situation now that, what's next for Adam Kownacki? And clearly the only right answer is retirement. I mean, he had said after his losses to Robert Helenius, he didn't want to go out like that. He wanted to really give it everything. They put him in with Ali Aaron Demirashian, who himself has actually retired since, saying he couldn't really get into the fights that he wanted to be in. He's been one of the better performers in the past couple of years, couldn't really sort of get a bigger opportunity. But he lost to Demirashian, and now he's lost to Cusumano. But not only that, this has taken a lot out of him. He could probably ill afford to take that much punishment, but he did. So I hope that for his health's sake and for his family, that he does actually consider the health aspect and maybe go, it's time to hang it up. I think it's pretty evident that he's done. I think at a low level, yeah, sure, he can, maybe, have some fights and be in fun fights, because he is a fun fighter. But against a certain level, and Cusumano is top 50, top 60-ish, somewhere there or thereabouts, and I don't think this fight really changes it. You really you still need to be able to take shots and have a chin, and his chin is cracked, it's gone. And I think if he was still in his prime, he would have walked through Joe Cusumano in a round or two. Circa 2018, 2019, the time around that time where he was fighting, Spilker, Charles Martin, that sort of stuff, he would have won this fight and easily. But he's really fallen off. He really has. There's no disputing that. And the thing is, you're going life and death with a guy who is not really a contender. He's, on the fringe at best. And this doesn't change it. I think, you have to step back and go, what's he really doing it for? I mean, clearly can only be for money, but, it's his choice at the end of the day. But I do think that he does need to retire. And for Cusumano, he's banked himself a payday on another Matchroom show or somewhere else, because guys will be looking at that and go, well, he's got to win against Adam Kownacki, a name in the division, and, that will parlay itself into a payday somewhere against an up-and-comer who probably will, in all likelihood, stop him and knock him out, a la what happened with Daniel Dubois. So Joe Cusumano, good performance from him overall, I guess you have to say, because he got the win. That's the main thing. He carries on. He'll get a payday. I don't think he will ever really be in contention. He's just, no offense, he's just not at that level. And this fight didn't change anything for me in terms of considering whether he's sort of, a top 20 or top 30 fighter. He's not. but he can be and will be, no doubt, in more fun fights like this one. What did you make of the performance? What did you make of the referee's performance? Adam Kownacki, surely he has to retire. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.